Hey friends, before we jump into this, if you've ever been the one who stayed while everyone else walked away, do me a favor right now, hit that like button. It really helps the channel, and I read every single comment. Drop where you're watching from, and what time it is there. I'm Josephine, and this is the story I never thought I'd tell out loud. 3 days after we lowered my mother into the ground, my sister stood in the middle of our childhood living room like she already owned the place. The same room where Mom and I had spent 2 straight years fighting a war no one else showed up for. Lexi held up one single photocopied page, her manicured nail tapping the line that mattered. It's right here in black and white, Joe. The house at 142, Sycamore Lane in Oakmont goes to Maine. You have 24 hours to pack your things and leave. Dad, Richard, stood right behind her, arms folded across his chest the way he always did when he was about to declare something sensible. He didn't say a word. He just nodded like the last 2 years of my life had been some kind of extended house-sitting gig that was finally over. I was 32 years old. I had given up my apartment in Philadelphia, my steady accounting job, my entire savings account, and every single dream I had for my 30s. I had bathed Mom when she was too weak to stand. I had held her hair back at 3 a.m. while she vomited from the chemo that never quite worked. I had slept on a pull-out couch in the hallway so she wouldn't wake up alone and terrified. And now my own sister was evicting me 3 days after the funeral. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Lexi, have you actually read the full will? Or did you just stop at the first page? She laughed. That sharp, dismissive laugh she's perfected since we were teenagers. The one that used to make me feel 2 inches tall. Josephine, it's literally spelled out. Stop being dramatic. Mom knew what she was doing. That laugh was the moment everything inside me shifted. Because I knew something she didn't. I knew about the late-night whispers, the silver Lexus that used to pull out of our driveway right after Mom sent me on those pointless errands to the pharmacy 40 minutes away. I knew about the locked filing cabinet she guarded like it held the crown jewels. And most of all, I knew my mother had spent the last 6 months of her life making sure the daughter, who actually showed up, would never be thrown away like yesterday's trash. But I didn't say any of that yet. Instead, I just smiled, small, tired, and completely calm, and said, "Okay. But before you start calling realtors, you might want to make one phone call first." Lexi rolled her eyes, so hard I thought they'd stick. To who? I let the silence stretch just long enough for the first crack of doubt to show on her face. Then I answered. But that's not where the story begins. Let me take you back 2.5 years earlier, to the exact moment my entire life changed forever. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon in October. I was at my desk in downtown Philly, knee-deep in quarterly tax reconciliations for a chain of auto shops, when my phone lit up with Mom's name. She never called during work hours. My stomach dropped before I even answered. "Baby, I need you to come home. The doctor says it's stage 3 ovarian cancer. It's already in the lymph nodes." I didn't even let her finish the sentence. I was already grabbing my keys. I had no idea that phone call was going to cost me everything I owned, and eventually give me back the only thing that ever truly mattered. The rain never let up the whole drive from Philly to Oakmont. It came down in sheets, blurring the highway lights into streaks of gold and red, and every time the wipers slapped across the windshield it felt like my heart was being wrung out all over again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking on the steering wheel. Evelyn, Mom, had always been my rock. The woman who could fix a leaky faucet at midnight, balance Dad's messy contracting books by hand, and still braid my hair while telling me I was going to change the world. Now she was on the other end of the phone telling me the doctors had found stage 3 ovarian cancer that had already wrapped itself around her lymph nodes like a fist. They wanted to start chemo in 4 days. I didn't cry on the phone. I just said, "I'm coming home, Mom, tonight." And I meant forever. When I finally pulled into the cracked driveway of the little blue 2-story house at 142 Sycamore Lane, the porch light glowed soft and yellow, exactly the way it had when I was a kid coming home late from soccer practice. Mom was standing in the doorway in her faded lavender robe, one hand clutching the frame like the house itself was holding her up. The October air smelled of wet leaves and wood smoke from the neighbor's chimney. I stepped out of the car, rain soaking my hoodie, and she opened her arms without a single word. I walked straight into them. She felt so small, bones and skin and that same vanilla lotion she'd worn since I was 6, but underneath it was the sharp hospital smell of antiseptic and fear. "Josephine," she whispered against my hair, voice cracking like thin ice, "you didn't have to drop your whole life for this." I held her tighter. "I know, but I'm here now, and I'm staying." That night, I lay in my old childhood bedroom under the slanted ceiling, the same room where I used to tape boy band posters and dream about moving to the city. The window still stuck when it rained. The radiator clanked the same tired rhythm. But everything felt heavier now, like the walls were already mourning. I stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck up there at 13 and listened to Mom's shallow breathing through the thin wall. Every inhale sounded like it cost her something. The next morning I sat at the scarred oak kitchen table, the one Mom and I had painted together when I was 12, and called my boss at the accounting firm. My voice was steady when I asked for indefinite family medical leave. He gave me the polite corporate sigh and then delivered the kill shot. "Joe, we're already drowning here. If you walk away now, we can't hold your position. You understand." I understood perfectly. I opened my laptop right there between the coffee mugs, typed out my resignation letter with shaking fingers, and hit send before the fear could talk me out of it. Then I drove to the U-Haul place, loaded every box I owned, turned in the keys to my cute one-bedroom in Philly, and watched my entire adult life disappear in the rearview mirror. I gave up my 401k contributions, my Tuesday night book club, the promotion I was 6 months away from, the little balcony where I used to drink wine and watch the city lights. I gave up the version of Josephine who had plans. And I did it without hesitation because my mother was dying and someone had to be there when the dark got too loud. Lexi, my older sister by 4 years, called that same night from her glass and steel high-rise in Chicago. Her voice was all practice sympathy, the kind she used on her big PR clients. "Oh my God, Joe, I am absolutely devastated. This is just crushing. But I have this massive product launch next week, international press, the works. I literally cannot drop everything like you can." I was standing at the sink scrubbing the pot Mom had tried to eat from, the one she'd thrown up into an hour earlier. The water was scalding my hands, but I didn't flinch. I just said, "I get it, Lexi. I'll keep you posted on everything." I didn't tell her I had just quit my job. I didn't tell her my savings were already bleeding out. I didn't tell her anything that might make her feel even an ounce of guilt. Dad, Richard, rolled in the following evening like he was stopping by for a casual football game. He carried a 6-pack of his favorite beer and a greasy pizza box, kissed Mom on the forehead without really looking at her face, and parked himself in front of the television. When she was trying to stand up to get her pills, he patted her knee and said, "You're the toughest woman I know, Evie. You'll beat this thing." Then he left before the pizza got cold, like the house suddenly smelled too much like illness. That became the pattern I memorized like a second language over the next 26 brutal months. Lexi would call every Sunday for exactly 11 minutes, never a second more, her voice bright and busy, talking about her latest campaign or the new sushi place she and her husband had discovered. She sent flowers once. Peonies. Mom was allergic to peonies. I threw them in the trash before Mom ever saw the card. Dad showed up twice a week like clockwork, sat in the same recliner, watched cable news at full volume, and complained about how expensive everything is these days, while I quietly paid the mounting co-pays out of my own emptying accounts. Meanwhile, I learned how to flush a PICC line at 2 in the morning. I learned the exact angle Mom needed her pillows so the nausea wouldn't win. I learned the sound of her breathing when the pain meds were wearing off, and the sound when the fear crept in instead. I sold my car to cover the supplement's insurance called elective. I cashed out my Roth IRA and took the penalty hit. I slept on a lumpy pull-out couch in the hallway so I could hear her if she called out in the night. And every single time I felt myself cracking, I would remember the way Mom had looked at me that first night, eyes shining with something fiercer than gratitude.
She saw me.
She really saw me. But the house was watching too. The locked filing cabinet in her closet. The silver Lexus that would pull out of the driveway right after she sent me on those long errands to the pharmacy in the next town over. The quiet, knowing smiles she gave me when she thought I wasn't looking. I didn't understand any of it yet, but I was about to. Thanksgiving hit like a storm we all pretended wasn't coming. 26 months into this nightmare, the little blue house on Sycamore Lane smelled like it used to. Roasted turkey, sage stuffing, cinnamon from the pie I'd baked at 5 a.m. because Mom always said Thanksgiving wasn't Thanksgiving without her recipe. I'd been up since dawn, moving through the kitchen on autopilot, my back aching from months of lifting her, my hands cracked from endless dishwater. The pull-out couch in the hallway still had the dent from my body. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours straight in over a year. Lexi arrived at noon in her sleek black SUV, designer coat flapping, carrying 2 bottles of expensive wine and a cashmere blanket for Mom's room. She hugged me quick, air kisses only, and said, "Joe, you look exhausted. You really need to take better care of yourself." Her husband, Marcus, trailed behind, scrolling his phone like the house was a waiting room. Dad, Richard, showed up 10 minutes later with his usual six-pack, kissed Mom on the forehead, and immediately turned on the football game loud enough to drown out everything else. I carried Mom's tray into her bedroom. Pureed turkey, mashed potatoes thinned to soup, the only things she could keep down now. She was propped up against pillows, scarf wrapped around her bald head, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "My girl," she whispered, voice barely there. I fed her slowly, spoonful by spoonful, while laughter and clinking glasses floated in from the dining room. Through the thin wall, I heard Dad raise his glass. To Lexi, for always keeping this family together. Marcus laughed. Lexi made that humble little sound she practiced in the mirror. I kept my face calm for Mom. Inside, something was burning. That night, after everyone left, Lexi back to her hotel, Dad to his condo 12 minutes away, Mom had another window of clarity. She patted the bed again. "Lie with me, Joe. Like when you were little and scared of thunder." I climbed in, careful of the 4-line and the bruises that never healed anymore. Her hand found mine. It was ice cold, but the grip was steel. "I know what they're planning," she said, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Lexi already has a realtor's number saved. Your father thinks it's sensible. They think I don't hear them whispering on the porch when they think I'm asleep.
But I see you, Josephine.
Every single night you've held my hand when the pain meds weren't enough. Every time you chose me over your own life. I am not leaving you with nothing." Tears slid down my temples into her pillow. She wiped them with a trembling thumb. "Attorney Harlan has everything. The original will and the changes I made in March. You read every page when the time comes. Promise me you won't let them take what's yours." I promised. Again. My voice broke so hard I couldn't speak after that. 8 weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning in late January, Mom slipped away while I held her hand. The hospice nurse stood in the doorway giving us privacy. The room smelled like lavender soap and the faint vanilla lotion I'd rubbed into her feet the night before. Her breathing slowed, then simply stopped. I didn't scream. I just pressed my forehead to hers and whispered, "I stayed, Mom. I stayed." Lexi flew in 6 hours later. Dad arrived 7. They looked rested. I looked like a ghost who hadn't slept in 3 years. The funeral was at St. Andrew's in Oakmont, small stone church, colored lights spilling across the pews like broken promises.
About 70 people came.
Lexi wore a perfect black designer dress, delivered the eulogy Dad had handed her like a crown. She talked about Sunday pancake mornings and that special mother-daughter bond. She even got Mom's favorite song wrong. I sat in the front row clutching Mom's favorite cardigan that still smelled like her, and no one, not one single person, said a word to me except Aunt Clara, who squeezed my hand and whispered, "She saw you, honey. She always saw you." Back at the house, I had cooked again, 2 trays of baked ziti, Mom's lemon pound cake, the works, because that's what you do in small-town Pennsylvania when someone dies. People ate and hugged Lexi and told her what an amazing daughter she was. I washed dishes in the background until the house finally emptied around 7:30. That's when Lexi pulled out the single photocopied page. She unfolded it on the coffee table like a victory flag. Found this in Mom's filing cabinet this morning. The house at 142 Sycamore Lane goes to Maine. Black and white, Joe. You have 24 hours to pack and leave. Dad nodded behind her. It's what your mother wanted, Josephine. Time for you to get back on your feet. Lexi's voice was pure boardroom ice. You've been living here rent-free for almost 3 years. Mom's gone now. This is mine. The room went dead silent. Even Marcus looked uncomfortable. I stared at that single sheet, 1 page, no staples, no page 1 of 5. Nothing. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth, but my voice came out calm, almost gentle. Lexi, have you actually read the full will? Or did you just stop at the first page? She laughed, that same sharp, dismissive laugh from the night. She thought she'd already won. It's literally right here. Stop being dramatic. I let the silence stretch until her smile faltered. Then I said, before you start calling realtors tomorrow, you might want to call Attorney Harlan first. He's the executor. He has the rest of the pages. Lexi rolled her eyes. I don't need some lawyer to read English, Joe. But the tiniest flicker of doubt crossed her face. And in that flicker, I felt Mom's promise settle into my bones like armor. The real storm was only hours away.